So before we start with the, I'm going to go ahead and begin with public comment on closed session. Do we have any public comment on closed session? Okay, seeing no public comment, do we want to do a roll call or?
I can if you'd like, but it's scheduled right.
Okay, we'll skip that. But what I'd like to do at this time is I'd like to introduce our new director, Tim Ittner from San Bernardino County. And Tim, if you would like to introduce yourself, you could do that at this moment.
Hey, I just want to thank you all for thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. I've been with I've worked for Paul Cook for about 14 years now. He's the new supervisor for the first district in San Bernardino County. He's been 8 years in Congress, where I worked for him as a legislative director, district director, and chief of staff. I worked for him at the Assembly, but most relevantly to this position, when I worked for him in D.C., part of my issue portfolio, I handled land and water issues at the federal level. So, there will definitely be a learning curve for me, but I do have a good amount of background in federal water law. And looking forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Director Ittner, and we're pleased to have you on board and welcome you. So we will go ahead and we'll get started out. Do we have Jim Markman on with us this morning? I don't believe so.
I'll email him when I get back.
Okay. So I believe we have everybody. So we will go ahead and get started. And so who would like to lead out on this closed session?
Yeah, I'll begin the closed session. We still need to make sure we give April and Gary time to leave the room.
Yeah, this is John Blair.
So we'll start with the report out on closed session. Keith Lemieux.
Yes, the board met in closed session to discuss two items. One is real property negotiation, and the other is public employment. Those two items, there was no reportable action on either item. And, Mr. Chairman, there'll be a additional closed session at the end of the meeting to cover the remaining items. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Keith. If everybody will follow me, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence and personal prayer. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next, we'll have the roll call.
Vice Chair Rotora,
Here.
Chairman Heyman,
Present.
Director Peters,
Here.
Director Itmeyer,
Here.
Director Vallejo,
Present.
Thomas Bakakis,
Present.
Commander Peter Benson.
Present.
Okay, next, public comments. So we are opening up to public comments on items not on the agenda. Okay, seeing no public comments, we will move on to the next item, the consent agenda. Any,
Yeah, Chairman Heyman, I do have one adjustment on consent item B6, the $100 payment to California Association of Mutual Water Companies. It shows on there that it's going to be paid for out of the extraction fee. It should show replenishment and extraction fee.
okay, so we're looking for an approval of the consent agenda with the added change to the item B6. That,
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
okay, we have a second. Okay. Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to item 7. Board review and approval of professional services agreement for general management and administrative services between Regional Government Services Authority and IWVGA.
We need a roll call vote on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Excuse me. So,
Vice Chair Rotora,
aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Okay. Motion's approved. Now we will move on to item 7. Board review and approval of professional services agreement for general management and administrative services between Regional Government Services Authority and the IWVGA. This will be led by Ron Strand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have with me today on the line representatives from RGS, Chris Paxton and Sophia Sivilanoff. They will be presenting later in this presentation. As you know, in 2016, when the Groundwater Authority was formed, all the member agencies entered into a JPA and a series of bylaws that guided this board. Initially, the board elected to have the management and the administration of the organization run by the entity or the member board that was sitting in the chairmanship, and that was rotated between the 3 agencies of Kern County, Indian Wells Valley Water District, and the City of Ridgecrest. It was known at that time that eventually the board would elect to have its own general manager and administration hired that would report directly to the board instead of having a member agency be in charge. In 2018, the board directed staff to seek applications for a general manager for the authority. Interviews were conducted of potential candidates. However, at that time, the board elected not to hire a general manager and remained with the current administrative structure. Once again, in 2020, the board again decided to go in the direction of hiring an independent general manager and staff, and directed staff to seek applications, which they did. In October 29th, the board and staff interviewed potential candidates. One of those candidates was Regional Government Services, RGS. On the 17th of December, the board elected to select RGS as an entity to perform general manager and administrative duties for the organization and directed staff to negotiate an agreement with RGS for that purpose. Staff has done so. We do have attached to this staff report, we do have a statement of qualifications for RGS, the RGS's initial proposal, and then a professional service agreement that was negotiated between staff and RGS. Some of the primary key points of that agreement, it's a one-year agreement that would begin February 10th today. Could be amended by mutual agreement of both parties. The RGS team will consist of three key staff members, the general manager, clerk of the board, and an accounting manager. The contract allows 35.5 hours per week to be allocated amongst those various roles for the administration and general management of the organization. The scope of work and hours were based upon a staff study or study that was conducted by Don Zadiba and his staff from the Water District. As you know, in 2019 and 2020, the general manager duties and administrative duties fell primarily on the Water District, so they were in a very good position to provide this input for the scope of work. In the agreement, it calls out for formal board review and evaluation of RGS at 3 and 6 months following the date of the agreement. This will allow for any changes in the agreement or any redirection by the board toward RGS. There's going to be a period of time that all of the administrative and general manager duties would have to be migrated over to RGS. That's going to take a while, and there may be some issues that the board may want to discuss with RGS, so that was part of the contract. RGS will not have a local office. They will be a remote organization that will provide management remotely. This is what they've done, I believe, since 2002. The estimated contract cost for next year is $200,000. We have budgeted $225,000 in our 2021 budget. This will be funded through the replenishment and extraction fees. And I have both Chris and Sophia on the line, and they can carry forward with what their plan is on how they're going to staff the organization, who they're going to staff it with, and what their plan is for the initial assumption of these roles. So Chris and Sophia, if you want to take over, you're more than welcome.
Sophia, did you want to start?
Well, Chris, I think go ahead and just let the know what the plan is. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, board members. We have identified. We have some financial staff members already on board with RGS that will be starting to work immediately to get a handle on the finances for the GA and to start to set up systems to migrate information in and to start getting that all moved over to RGS operations. We also have identified Carol Thomas Kiefer, sorry, as the general manager, and she is also scheduled to start right away. She's already on board with us, and she will be meeting with your staff and our staff to coordinate the transition immediately. The third member of the team would be April Kagwin, who you folks are already familiar with, who has worked for the Indian Wells Valley Water District for a number of years and has served in the capacity of board clerk and doing administrative work for the GA. She's agreed to come over to work on the RGS side, and so she will help us with that. She will not start until she is separated with the district. she's given them her notice, so we will have her on board within in about a couple of weeks. So our folks, the general manager will be staffing your meetings and also any of the meetings that would be subgroupings of your agency. So any other committees, et cetera, she would be providing the representation for the GA at those meetings. She will also be working on all of the budgeting, any capital improvement issues, and all of the typical general manager duties. That's what Carol will be handling. One of the big things, obviously, initially will be meeting with your financial folks and our financial folks to make sure that crossover of duties occurs in a timely manner and we get things moving smoothly. And that's why we do want to make sure that we have the meeting at 3 months and 6 months to make sure that we're adhering to the timelines and that we're not having any glitches, anything that would hold things up. And obviously we can meet any time prior to that if there is a need, anything that we determine. One of the things is, since we've been doing this for the Salinas Valley Basin Groundwater Authority for a number of years, and so we're pretty experienced with how this works. We know what to watch out for. Our folks will also be able to make some suggestions in terms of helping things run maybe more smoothly, more efficiently, et cetera, and just make it better for the agency in terms of how it all comes together. And so that's the plan. That work, the coordination will start right away, and we'll move as expeditiously as possible, making sure that everything's moved over accurately and as seamlessly as we can make it. And that's pretty much the presentation. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them for you.
Thank you, Chris. So at this point, we'll bring it back for public comment. So on item number 7, we'll open it to public comment. Speaker, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee Westelusk. I just have a question for the RGS people. Just to prepare for any extra expenses. If something doesn't work out and RGS doesn't get a renewed contract in a year, is there a cost to transfer all this over to another quote-unquote general manager? I just want to know, make sure all the upfront costs are accounted for.
Chris or Sophia?
Hi, this is Sophia with Regional Government Services. I think any time that you have a transition in an organization or between organizations, there is some form of cost that is incurred, right? When we change staff members inside of an organization, there is a transition cost. It may not be a lot of dollars out of pocket. It might be a time or a lost opportunity, but I do think that, frequent transitions are undesirable. We don't anticipate being in a position a year from now relative to your authority that you would not want us to continue working, but certainly I think it's not unreasonable to say that if you did decide in a year that you don't want to work with regional government services anymore, there would be some form of expense incurred in making a transition to something else. But how much that might be is really unpredictable because it depends what you would be transferring those responsibilities to. I think all of the systems that would be set up in the groundwater authority's name and under their control would not have to be reset up, right? They would remain in existence, just a new person or group of people would manage those, but there's going to be some knowledge transfer or new learning that is going to represent an unknown and unpredictable cost at this point in time.
I just have one other question regarding the $200,000. Does that take into consideration the cost to transfer everything now from the water district to RGS? Is there cost beyond the $200,000 just to start the transition?
The $200,000 reflects the 35.5 hours a week of staff service that we have anticipated based on the water district analysis of effort their staff has been putting in. We did in the proposal note that there may be some additional transition costs. Again, at this point in time, we have not completely mapped, for example, this call that we're on, the WebEx system. Who owns that? What is the price point for it? You know, is that something that comes with the Groundwater Authority administration or belongs to the district? So there are some additional and not yet pinned down costs. I think we would be in a position relatively soon to itemize those and have a conversation about how those are absorbed.
Just one other question. Do you anticipate these additional transition costs? Would they be 10% of the more, like 10% of the $200,000 that needs to be paid out? Can you give us a ballpark, like what it costs to transition records from your other entities that you've done work for?
Renee, I can answer that question, I think. One of the benefits of RGS hiring April is that she's coming with all of the corporate knowledge of the clerk of the board. And she's coming with all the knowledge on how the fees are collected, where they're paid. So a lot of that transition costs are in fact absorbed by hiring April. Now, as for the general manager position, that's just going to be getting that person up to speed on what's currently going on with the organization. So there may be some transition costs, let's say when it comes to RGS maybe building a line item budget and squaring away our budgeting process, there may be a cost there. But I really don't see any significant transition costs because you still have the current staff that's going to be engaged in the meeting. So it's not like RGS is going to have to start over from scratch. There is going to be help with them in the transition process. We're just not going to step off and leave them on the curb and say, figure it out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next caller. Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Oh, hi. This is Kimberly Leafat on behalf of Mojave Pistachio. My question involves how the contract will be funded. I just want to understand if it's being financed or funded through the replenishment fee or if there's some other budgeted receipts that have already been collected instead of dedicating future receipts payment for this contract.
This is Ron. I can answer that question. The revenue for this, the payment of this agreement will come from both the extraction and replenishment fee.
Does that answer your question, Kimberly?
I'm sorry, you said the extraction fee?
Yes, both the extraction and replenishment fee.
And replenishment fee. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. Next caller. Okay, seeing no other public comment, we will bring it back to the board for discussion and action.
No comments for me at this time.
Director Vertora.
Yes, thank you. I think an independent management staff is something that we have needed for some time. So I'm very happy that we've got RGS on board. I think maybe the cost that's been budgeted might be a little optimistic. I think we need to get started, give them a chance, see what they can do, and get them on board. And I will be just exceedingly happy to see if we can keep under our $225K budget. On page 2 of our staff report, I also noted that we're getting the money from the replenishment fee and the pumping fee. I'm hoping that you actually mean it's coming out of the admin transfer fees that are going into the admin fee as opposed to an additional cost out of the pumping fee and the replenishment fee?
Mr. Rotora, yes, that is correct. In our admin fee, in our admin budget, we do show transfers from the replenishment and the pumping fee going into that budget as revenue and then used as expenditures for this contract.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to verify there was not an additional
no, sir, it's not.
Cost coming out of those two funds. Thank you. Also, in terms of the scope on, I think it's page 12 of the professional services agreement, I don't see any mention of the TAC or the PAC, and I'm assuming it's embedded in one of those items that's included in the scope of the work. I wanted to make sure that we all were in agreement that the TAC and the PAC are still primary parts and committees to our group here, and that we really need to make use of those two committees. Also, in terms of contact with the public, one of the problems we've had in the past is the public doesn't know who to go to. So I want to make sure that our staff has an agreement with RGS so that the public knows exactly who to contact if they have a question, and they know where to go to, and that kind of thing. And then in terms of the location, I didn't see anything in the agreement where it spelled out a location for any local personnel that RGS might have, and I'm sure the public is probably interested in knowing, is there going to be a location that is going to be manned so that they can have interaction with RGS?
Okay, Mr. Rotora, I'll give a shot at answering those questions for you. As for the TACT and PACT, as you're aware, the TACT has been given a couple of tasks here recently to work with the groundwater resource manager on a couple of reviews of projects. I believe one of them is the fallowing program, and I think the other is the shallow well program. So we are engaging those. Those are at the discretion of the board. Normally, the general manager has minimal contact with that because that's normally through the water resource manager. As for contacting the new general manager, I would assume that will primarily be either over the phone or through video conference, primarily because of COVID at this point in time. There is a restriction on in-person contact. I do believe we can make that publicly known when the new general manager comes on board. That could be one of her responsibilities is being able to reach out to these groups so she has a period of time to be responsive to the community questions. Your last question about location. We did not elect to have a local office because that would have added a significant, an additional cost to this contract, which I didn't think that the board would want. I do believe that if there are certain hours that that the board wants to make the general manager available to the public, we can do that through a Zoom meeting. Those have been very effective so far. So, and of course, none of this stuff is in stone. We need, RGS has stated they're going to be adaptive and responsive to the board. That's the reason why we are, going with an independent firm. And obviously, if the majority of the board gives them direction, I would assume that they're going to follow through with it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that as part of the transition plan, all of those issues and items are addressed one way or another, and that the public knows what the outcome of that transition is.
Fair question. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Director Vallejo.
No, nothing to add.
Director Entire.
Nothing to add.
Okay, so that's back to me. So I do have a few questions, so I'm just going to kind of run through them here quick. When it comes to the method of billing, it states that's 2 times a month and max billing to the IWVGA. And so when it comes to payment to RGS, who will be in charge of that payment? Will it come through the accountant, the clerk of the board, or the general manager?
I do believe in accordance to the agreement that it will come to me during this contract for review and then back to RGS for payment, which our normal protocol is it comes before your board before it's paid.
Okay.
But we did set it up that I am the contact for actually your primary contact, but I would assume you're going to make me your designee to be the one that manages the contract between RGS and the GA. I mean, obviously the board gives RGS direction, but on the day-to-day smaller things, it would fall on me.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, when it comes time for the RGS to come up with the insurance, the liability insurance certificates, I would like to see that the board is immediately apprised of of those certificates. I think that's important that we know immediately that we're covered on the insurance side of it. So I'd like to see that as an immediate action once it's available.
Correct. They should. They can forward it both to the board in general and then to myself.
Okay. Very good. Next item is. Under the list of 11 items from RGS on administrative services, number 9 was principal spokesman to the agency, public info programs, and coordinate media relations. I think that's a fantastic portion of their items. If budget allows, I'd like to see time and effort spent toward the PR side of public relations between the board and our constituents or the public. So I do like seeing that, and I would hope that everybody would be in agreement that the more we can be transparent and keep the public educated on where we're at, that would be a great item to be following up on. And last, it was covered by Mrs. Westerluck. She had a question about some of those additional costs. I did too, with the transitional, but I think that's been answered really well. And my only concern would be that I know it's stated that there'll be a 3-month and 6-month review of the process that we're going through, but I'd like to see any costs that may be incurred, not wait 3 or 6 months. So if RGS could, as they see these costs being raised or needed, that it's brought to the board immediately so that we can adjust and make decisions with it. So. And that's all I have. So any other comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion.
I'll motion to approve the agreement.
Do we have a second?
This is John. Second.
Go ahead, John. You cut out.
Sorry, so this is John Vallejo. I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Vice Chair Rotorua,
Aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
and Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Okay. Motion is approved. We will now move on to item 8, board consideration and approval of GSP plan project number 4, shallow well impacts and mitigation programs. This will be led by Steve Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Heyman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Steve, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very, very much. First of all, I don't want to be out of order on this, but congratulations to the board and the staff and the entire Indian Wells Valley on the action you guys just took. There's some big steps being taken in this last several months, and this is another big one to actually get some structure. It's welcome. It's a great deal. It's great for the board. It's great for the staff. It's great for the public. So, great step. We look forward to working with RGS and certainly with Carol. I think the board generally knows. I know we have some new members on the board, but generally knows I've worked with Carol for well over 20 years. She may be on the line right now, probably on the line right now. So I want to say congratulations to Carol. We have a great working relationship. She's a great manager. So I want to give you that. And big hooray for April. I think that was a great step for you guys to bring April on. She's, from my perspective, working with April, it's been exceptional. She does a great job, and she's a great addition to adding to the Groundwater Authority going forward. So these are great steps, great structural steps for the authority. So sorry about that, but I'll go on now to item 8, which is the shallow well impact evaluation. There is a PowerPoint, a very short one, which maybe we can get it up. It's not needed if we don't on this one because it's very, very short. There is also a staff report, and Jean Moran, who is, I believe, as far as I knew yesterday, she's out in the field. She's in Ridgecrest working on the TSS work, the well drilling on the TSS. So she is there. She worked very hard on the evaluation of shallow well impacts as part of the GSP and as part of the modeling, and she worked with the rest of our staff on developing an approach to shallow well impacts identification and evaluation and potential mitigation, depending on how the board looks at all of these impacts to shallow wells. So Jean has been very, very involved. I think she's on the line, and I'll go so far, and then I'll move it to her to go through it. I did bring this to the board at the last meeting, and it's been as we all know, it's been a very, very short turnaround between the last meeting. We were able to get some stuff done, but we only had a couple of weeks. So it's a short turnaround to come back. At the January board meeting, we indicated we wanted to bring this back to the board at the February meeting with the intent of requesting approval to proceed with this project. It's project number, as stated, it's project number 4 in the GSP, shallow well mitigation, impacts mitigation. So that's what we're coming back here for. We do have the PowerPoint. It's a very short PowerPoint. I just wanted to mention a couple of things generally, and that is this program has been looked at extensively. We evaluated shallow well impacts as part of the GSP, identified numbers of wells that have been impacted historically. We evaluated wells that will still be impacted while we try to implement our sustainability plan. There will still be well impacts. We expect those to happen. That information was all shared and run through the TAC, evaluated by the TAC, brought to the board, and presented to the board. So it's a part part of the GSP. The study and the work that we did is a part of the appendix of the GSP. It's all included. And as stated by directors earlier, we do engage the TAC. We have engaged the TAC just recently as part of bringing this project number 4 back to the board for approval to proceed. We did run it back through the TAC and ask for input. We got very, very good input from, as you might expect. We've gotten good input on all of the material we put out there to the TAC from TAC members, but we got some very good input from Don Decker. We got a written report in 2 areas that I think are very helpful. As we included in the staff report, we have indicated that running this through the TAC and get input from the TAC will serve as a basis for developing the final shallow well impacts mitigation plan. So I'll make that commitment to Don Decker right now. We will be implementing. Gene liked the input too. I like the input. We will be implementing your comments right into the shallow well mitigation program. So with that, I'll do it up front because we need to do this at the end. The budget approved by the board at the January meeting, the budget for calendar year 2021 did include $70,000 total for this program. We're breaking it down very roughly into about $50,000 to get the program all pulled together, documented, and into your file so that you have it documented what the program is. That'll all be run through the TAC and the staff and the TAC. The second part of it, the $20,000, is a program based upon outreach. There's been a lot of comment about the Groundwater Authority's outreach programs. This is going to be an outreach program to try to engage with the shallow well owners to make sure that shallow well owners are aware of what the authority is doing and what we're looking at regarding shallow well impacts due to the overdraft in the basin and the lowering of groundwater levels. So those are the 2 programs we expect to get accomplished during this calendar year if this program, if this project number 4, is approved by the board. So if Gene, or if you're on, Gene, I would love to have you add your comments and your thoughts about the program.
I am on. Thank you, and good morning. There's only a few more things I wanted to add. Steve has pretty much outlined the piece and what we are requesting to have an authorization to proceed. That when we looked at the shallow well impact, we estimated that over time there could be as many as 100 shallow wells that have been impacted and either had to be redrilled or had to be deepened because of groundwater levels being lowered since the well had first been put in. We anticipate that groundwater levels will continue to be lowered as we put in our sustainability plan. And during this time, a preliminary estimate with all the assumptions we needed to put in it estimated that there would be at least another 22 wells that may get impacted by lowering of water tables and the shallow well becoming no longer serviceable for the well owner. The limitations that we've had is actually identifying which wells specifically have had to be refurbished or deepened in order to be able to still be a viable well. So with this work plan, we would spend part of the work plan identifying actual shallow wells as opposed to the analysis we did before, which were estimates mostly based on the available permitting data that we have. We would revisit the permitting data and look specifically at more recent data to identify wells that have called out a driller to address the well going out of service. The other parts of the plan will be to work through how a well owner that has been impacted would be able to access funds through the GA for mitigation. And that would need to include an evaluation of what actually took place at the well, and then with the evaluation, discussions and recommendations by the water resource manager. So this plan includes both well identification, evaluation, and mitigation programs, along with forms and methods by which the owner could access these funds. That was mostly what I want to identify. Steve did discuss that the budget for this is $70,000, with $50,000 going toward the plan and $20,000 going for outreach and identification and initial evaluation of the shallow wells within the basin. It is estimated that there are about 870 to 900 shallow wells within this basin. Steve, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Steve, did you have any further comments?
This is Steve back here. I was on mute, but I wanted to thank you, Gene. I wanted to mention one other thing, Chairman Hyman and the board. Don Decker made several very, very good comments, and I want to at least focus on one right now, because if I don't, he'll probably call in and mention it again. So I'll go ahead and address it right now. One of his comments was, and I think it's a very, very valid, important comment, and that is we're doing things kind of structurally in a way that we're trying to document what is being done by the recommended or being done by the water resources manager and ultimately adopted or implemented by the board. And we're trying to document things as we go, and that's most of the reason why we feel like it's important that a written, documented shallow well impacts identification mitigation program get developed, so the board, the staff can look at it, the TAC can look at it, and the board can approve it, and we have it in place. One of Don Decker's comments was, with the state of the finances of the Groundwater Authority, spending a lot of time doing these kinds of things is burning money, and we recognize that it's burning funds. That we ought to consider just getting right to the program and just set some written guidelines together, put some guidelines out there, and just get going on the program and not spend a lot of engineering time writing up the actual program or the document. And I wanted to just assure Don that we got that comment. I understand that, and we will certainly try to push things that direction and try to find a happy medium between a full-blown, 2-inch thick document and a set of just guidelines that we go by. But whatever we do, we will run it through you guys, you, Don, with the rest of the guys on the TAP. We'll run it through you guys and then bring it to the board. So we will address that. So at this point, we are looking to request authorization from the board to move forward on that project number 2. Project number 4, which is the Shallow Well Impacts Mitigation Program. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so at this point, we'll go ahead and open up to public comment on item number 8.
Hello?
Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yes. My name is Mike Neal. So first, before I get started on this item, I need to inform the board that there's a serious problem with getting public comment accomplished during this meeting. I was in queue to wait to talk on the last item, and I was cut off. The board went on. I was not recognized, so we're going to be dealing with that later on formally. As to this item, I'd like to just simply say that in actuality, and certainly in the shorter term, this is really the only thing that this board or any other board dealing with our groundwater supply needed to ever even deal with. As you're well aware, we got probably 95% plus water users in this valley, served through the deep water wells of the Indian Wells Water District. And then you have a very much smaller number of people with private wells, some of whom, and they've only, as I recall, identified maybe less than 10 that are getting short on their head in their water wells. So, we could have all dealt with this much easier and much cheaper, more beneficially, especially to those people whose wells are having problems, early on. And this is going to be one of the lower cost items in the whole situation. So I am glad to see this getting done. I have to admit, of all the things I've seen the GA do wrong over the years, they've been in existence here. This is something that these guys really didn't need to do. I've always advocated a good neighbor tax of some sort to help these people out. And, it's finally going to happen after 3+ years of delay. And it is properly part of the replenishment fee, as opposed to the prior item, which I had comment to make, but I'm going to resolve that till next meeting when you're going to need to take it back up again. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any other callers? Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee Westerlusk. I just have some financial questions to ask. With this authorization to go ahead with development of the plan, is it automatically authorizing $70,000 to go ahead and do the plan along with the communication and engagement with the shallow well owners? But does it go beyond that? Is the GA already going to start funding for remediation with this authorization, or is it just the $70,000 right now, and then you'll have to come back for more authorization for remediation of wells that crop up, say, in the next year or two with issues?
I can answer that. This is Ron. They budgeted a level of effort on the anticipated revenue for this year. So we anticipate bringing in approximately $70,000 in the well mitigation fee, and so that's what their work is based upon. Now next year, they'll have another item or other work task based upon the additional revenue that will be received in forthcoming years.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Any other callers? Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Judy Decker, and I'm calling both as an individual and as a member of the Eastern Kern RCD and their PAC representative. What is your policy going to be on wells that have failed recently? For instance, I know of a half-mile stretch of land where there are 6 houses, and 5 of them have had their wells either replaced or drilled in the last couple of years. Are you going to start from when the GA started in 2016, or are you going to start now? You don't have a policy, and I would think you would want the Policy Advisory Committee to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Chairman Hyman, if I could answer, this is Steve.
Go ahead.
Okay, in the staff report on the second page, because this came up before when we were originally talking about, in the last couple of months, talking about this program, but when the original shallow well mitigation program was included in the GSP, and it went through the TAC, and went through the board, and the board approved it. There were questions that were just like that. And the answer to those questions were that the authorized date at which impacts would be looked at by the board, and the board could change all of this, but right now the authorized date that the board would look at impacts to shallow wells was after February 1, 2020. So just about a year ago is where they would start looking at it. They had to set it someplace, and they didn't want to go all the way back, so they set it really right after the GSP was adopted.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Chairman Heyman, if I may, this is Phil Hall.
Go ahead.
I think I would add to what was said there. The reason it was set at that date was because prior to that date, this board really had no legal authority to mitigate for such damages. You're a regulatory board, and that's really when your regulations sort of became effective, I guess would be the best way of looking at it. So that date wasn't arbitrarily chosen. It was chosen based on legal considerations of when you had the authority to start mitigating and charging people to mitigate damages.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other callers? Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead. Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will bring it back to the board for discussion and action. Any comments from the board? Mr. Director Rator?
Yes, thank you. I think this is an important thing that we move out on and start doing immediately. I do have a couple comments or questions. Steve, can you tell where is the data that we're getting back from the TAC or the comments located on a place that the public can access easily?
I'll qualify this, Director Bator. Yes, generally yes. Comments like those are posted to the website, the GA website. I don't know for sure that Don Deckers have been posted yet, but we will make sure they get posted.
Okay, and all of them will be. Is there
all of them? Yes, yeah. That's the only one we've received so far.
Is there going to be an attempt to get all the TAC members together to have a joint discussion as opposed to, 30 or what? How many other 15 or 16 independent comment sets?
It's actually I'll answer the best I can because for what I know, it's not really my call as the Water Resources Manager to put them back together, especially with the COVID situation we have. I will let you know that Adam was the chair, and we know we lost Adam, and he was replaced by Searles. I believe the vice chair or alternate, one of the two, was Eddie, and I have reached out to Eddie and at least over the last several weeks and suggested that because he's shown interest for some leadership already, that he reach out and use April every way he can, any way he can, to identify the current TAC members, any vacancies, and work with those TAC members to possibly come up with an agreed-upon chairperson in anticipation that we would be able to have TAC meetings again. But right now, there are no TAC meetings actually in person scheduled.
Okay. And my one last comment, I believe Gene made a comment that there are 850 to 900 shallow wells. According to my latest data, the total for de minimis and non-de minimis, including the water district deep wells and the farming deep wells, about 250 in that ballpark. That means that we've got an awful lot of wells that we don't have any idea where they are, where they're located. It seems to me it's going to be very difficult to do a whole lot of planning when we've got 3 times as many wells that we don't know where they are compared with where we do know. And I guess I don't know how we prioritize that, but it seems to me that people who registered wells and have been honest and forthright in terms of giving us their information, maybe we should, and of course this is a policy issue that we'll decide later on, but we need to make sure that the people who have given us the information get taken care of. And I don't know how you do that in terms of the plan, but that's going to be my input later on when we talk about policy issues.
Yep.
Over.
We agree with your concerns.
Steve, this is Chairman Heyman. So under the current plan, is the it's $50,000 program plan, $20,000 outreach, identification, and initial evaluation. Is that $20,000? Does that apply to what Director Rotorua was just inquiring about? Is to be reaching out and identifying other wells?
Yeah, yes, that's part of it.
Okay.
Part of it is it includes identification, identification of potentially impacted wells. We're not anticipating a big formal outreach program where we go out and look for people, go out knocking on doors. That's really not the role of the authority. But the outreach is to make sure that everybody who we could reach is aware of the program and they have the opportunity to report impacts that they think they may have. The form has already been prepared, and the form is already to report is ready to go to put on the website. Once we authorize the program, we'll get the form on the website. And then there will be an initial part of that money would be an initial evaluation by the Water Resources Manager of any reported impacts, and then start bringing that back to the team staff and to the TAC to evaluate next steps. So the intention is to take it that far. It's not a real. We don't anticipate a real proactive outreach. Just as the director pointed out. It's really up to these shallow well owners to register their wells and come into the program. And if they do, then we will certainly going to look at their impacts as they report those. So yes, that work is part of that outreach. Correct.
Thank you, sir. Director Vallejo, any comments?
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Director Itnyer, any comments?
Nothing to add.
And Director Peters.
I'm good.
Very good. I just have one question in regards to the budget for the shallow well mitigation program. So are we keeping a separate itemized budget, or not a budget, but the revenues that's coming in and appropriated out to the for the shallow well mitigation program?
Yes, I do believe it's a $17.50 fee that's paid along with a replenishment fee for this purpose, and I do believe the Water District has separated that revenue stream out, and it is tracked.
Very good.
Part of the 105.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we got the fee, but
it's separate.
Yeah, I'd
my
like to
understanding as well.
See a separate accounting of it. That's the only question I have. So if we have no further questions or comments from the board, we will open it for a motion. And
I so move.
I'll second.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Vice Chair Rotorua.
Aye.
Chairman Heyman.
Aye.
Director Peters.
Aye.
Director Itnyer.
Aye.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Okay, we have a motion and approval on item 8. We will now move to item 9, Water Resources Manager Report. Steve Johnson, this is yours.
Yeah, ready to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will point out one other item, which sometimes things pop into my head afterwards, that this shallow well impacts mitigation program, we did receive comments on the GSP, as you all know, from the state board. They provided comments the state board did to the DWR staff. This is one of the items that the state board complimented us on the GSP, the inclusion of that program. So we're right in line with the state on what was just approved. So, Water Resource Manager report. There are 6 items. I will try not to belabor these items. I'm going to cover the first 4 pretty quickly. Steve Reich, the hydrogeologist, will be online to do E, which is the COSO, and F, which is the GSP plan projects associated with a surface water percolation study. So if we can put the first PowerPoint up, which has to do with our grant programs. I've tried to give updates every meeting on our grant programs to know where we are. The first one has to do with the Prop 1 grant, the big grant we got at the very beginning of this to develop the GSP. Invoice number 8 is currently at DWR. The total amount after retention is a little over $136,000. It was submitted at the end of November, along with the progress reports for Prop 1 and Prop 68. Minor comments were received back from DWR in January. We have gotten those comments back to DWR and resubmitted, and we have been in touch with Jennifer at DWR. She indicated that she's received those comments. She's looking those over, and at least initial reaction was she didn't see any problem with it and anticipated approving that invoice. So that one should be moving along. Next invoice is due at the end of this month, so we'll be preparing another invoice shortly. For the next PowerPoint, which is Prop 68, that's the existing Prop 68 grant that we have. A reminder that the award was for $330,000. Eligibility was current availability was about $300,000. That's where we are right now. Invoice 8B, which is a part of the invoice number 8 in Prop 1. Fairly small. This was all reimbursement for past cost, and we had a very large payment on our first invoice that we submitted. Only $3,000. It's been submitted, it's been approved, and we're just currently awaiting payment on that invoice. Next invoice would be, again, end of February for the existing Prop 68. We have a new Prop 68 grant funding application that has been submitted. That would be the next PowerPoint. It was submitted on January 8th, about a month ago. It was submitted on time. There are provisions in this grant application to apply for either reduction or elimination of local grant or local funding share. The requirement is 25%, and we can either, if they allow it, they would reduce our local funding share to 15% or possibly 0. Required letters of support. I want to thank everybody who did provide letters of support. Joseph Montoya in my office did the outreach on that. We ended up with 6 letters of support. We only needed 5. The only concern we have is that 2 of the letters of support had some qualifications in their support, so we haven't heard word back yet on how DWR has viewed those letters of support, but we did get 6 letters of support in under the deadline, which is good. At the very bottom of this PowerPoint, I'll just note that DWR was going to complete their technical eligibility review for all applications by February the 5th. We have not heard from them on that yet, but you know we haven't heard anything on that. The draft funding list, which would be their semifinal or final list of who would receive funding, is due in the early part of March. Just as a reminder, the minimum amount of funding for this round, and there's 2 phases that are identical in dollar amounts. The minimum amount was $2 million. The maximum amount is $5 million. We applied for the maximum, with a big chunk of that money being for the city's expansion of the wastewater treatment facility in anticipation of a coordination arrangement between the Groundwater Authority and the city. If we can bring money in through the authority, we will work out an arrangement where all of the residents of the valley, everybody who is affected by the groundwater authority, would receive the benefits from that grant. So that's where we are now. We'll let you know. Hopefully, by the next meeting, we'll have word on the new Prop 68 grant. That's the grant, new Prop 68. Now, the next one is Recycle Water Program Update. We promised we would bring this back, updates to every meeting, and we will. At the last meeting, the program was authorized. Just as a reminder, there's an option agreement that's been executed between the Groundwater Authority and the City of Ridgecrest. It was done at the November meeting. At that meeting, the Recycle Water Program was also established, along with a very preliminary, fairly detailed, but very preliminary outline of what the evaluation of best uses of recycled water might be, including potential treatment needs for those uses. That outline was a part of the approval at the November meeting. The analysis, actually, at the January meeting, the detailed outline and the approach to the analysis of alternatives was approved at the January meeting just weeks ago. What we are doing now, and again, this has been a short turnaround, it's only been 2 weeks, but we think we've just about got it turned around. Our goal was to take that outline and take the input that we've received from the board and the staff, certainly from our partner, the city, and the public, and rework that outline into more of a priorities-based analysis where we focus on where we think the most appropriate, most effective, most cost-effective, and most effective for groundwater replenishment, for replenishing the groundwater, either in lieu or directly. Rework that scope of work and our work task, and redistribute that back to a staff team and then back through the TAC to be basically included as our final work plan to get going on this work. So the goal right now is to complete that more detailed evaluation with priorities identified for the recycled water work, and we anticipate that being done this week, reviewed by staff team, and then out to the TAC and posted on the website by by this Friday. I'm sorry, by the 12th, which is this Friday. And the last part of that is part of the update is as we move through this, we will continue to coordinate certainly with the city as a partner on the options agreement for the work that's being done, and then the staff team, the entire staff team, and the TAC, and then ultimately anything that it comes to a conclusion to where we have some final recommendations, we'll come back to the board. So that's just an update on the Recycled Water Project. The next item on the Water Resource Manager report is the Coastal Royalty Fund. Steve Reich in my office, geologist, hydrogeologist, has been very helpful in keeping this moving, along with Commander Benson and with the staff team, with Don Zadiba. Steve, are you on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Steve's going to do the next two items. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. And, I just want to give a quick update of where we are and what we've accomplished or what we've been doing the last couple months. So with regards to fiscal year 2021 COSO funding, which was $300,000 for looking at groundwater flow and measuring groundwater inflow from the Rose Valley, we put together an RFP package at the end of December. We sent that out in January to 4 qualified drillers. We finally received bids from 3 of those drillers. Because of the cost of some of the bids that we received, we have looked at refining that bid, and we sent those back out and are expecting responses end of next week. So we're at the point of hopefully picking a qualified firm to do that work, probably within the next week to 10 days. In addition to that, we've been working with the BLM on their both their environmental and the real estate side. The goal of this is to provide the Navy with a complete package that includes 3 competitive bids, as well as with the real estate and environmental permits that it will take to complete the well drilling package. We hope to submit that by early April. And then commence drilling in sometime in the fall of this year. So that's where we are with fiscal year 21 COSO projects. Before I move to the 22 projects, is there any questions on that?
Yeah. Could you explain? We're talking about the Navy COSO project.
Yes.
Could you give them a little more detail on what the objectives are of that whole program? And let me give you a bit of background. The last meeting we talked about an El Paso well drilling effort that amounted to basically a monitoring well, and it didn't sound like it was going to give us any real information regarding the ability to actually obtain water from the well, which is ultimately really what we need. What is the objective of the Rose Valley well drilling effort? And is it going to give us the information that we need to actually determine if we can pull water from that area?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. The objective of the Rose Valley program is to be able to quantify the amount of inflow coming into the Indian Wells Basin from the Rose Valley area. So what we'll be doing is drilling a series of wells that will be able to measure hydrogeologic properties, define the direction of flow, and then quantify that flow in terms of how it adds and supports the resources in the basin. And I don't know if Gene's still on. I wasn't, the charge on that well was not necessarily to develop a new area for groundwater production, but rather to, be able to better quantify the groundwater resources in the basin itself.
I would like to add to that, Steve, is, Stan, what this provides us is we estimated the natural recharge to the basin, and that's part of the definition of what is sustainable yield. It's what is the natural sustainable input to the basin. And one of the data gaps was how much subflow is coming into the basin and recharging the groundwater basin in the northwest area from Rose Valley. And what was missing there is groundwater levels that if we add a gradient to, if we develop a gradient, we can calculate or estimate how much recharge is coming from there. The USGS did a recharge study for the water district. It just came out as draft, and I believe you had a presentation from them a year and a half ago or so. And they weren't sure of that estimate either. And so we're hoping to provide data that supplements how much recharge is there. We're limiting it to the 7650 based on just estimates that DRI provided. But this will be able to supply better data in terms of that inflow into the basin. And it's not just going to be water levels, it'll also be the water quality that comes in and any kind of salt loading that might occur. So that was the purpose of the Rose Valley subflow wells. They aren't going to be drilled in Rose Valley itself. They'd be drilled just south of Little Lake. In that narrows where you have the volcanics encroaching in and pinching off with the Sierras. Those 3 wells will monitor that area.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. We're also working for fiscal year 2022. So if we go to the next slide, which I believe is slide 2 in this deck, is the funding, and this should say funding for fiscal year 2022 projects. So what we put together is a draft project list of qualifying projects, and I'm just finishing that up and hope to distribute that to the TAC early next week. So based on the TAC's input, we want to develop and look at what alternative projects would qualify for fiscal year 2022 funding. We're on a tight timeline on this. We want to identify those that are most beneficial to the basin and also meet the criteria under the funding requirement. So we'll distribute that list in a short memorandum to the TAC committee. We'll take that into review and then come up with chosen projects for initiating a feasibility level design. As part of that COSO funding and meeting Navy requirements, we will be developing a feasibility level, what the Navy refers to as a DD 1391, which is a funding mechanism for projects to identify, what the purpose and scope are, as well as what the costs. And there's a few things that are typical of a feasibility level design. We will be initiating that, and as well as with permitting requirements. It would be important to also necessary for the submittal will be to identify environmental and real estate constraints and permits that are required for that. Our goal right now is to have the draft 1391 documents for at least 2 preferred projects during the week of April 11th, and then final 1391 delivered to the Navy sometime during the week of April 18th. So in summary, the next step is to provide an initial list of the TAC and get recommendations for projects that should be considered that aren't already presented in that memorandum. If there's no questions, I can move on to the next one.
Hey, this is Commander Benson. If I could just make a quick comment with this.
Go ahead, Commander Benson.
Thank you. I'm glad to see a little more, some effort with this. I've been happy to work with the board and Stetson on trying to get things lined up for this. I just want to make 2 points with this. One, the projects have to be ready for execution in that next fiscal year for FY22. So that's why we're trying to follow the process timeline here and have stuff ready to go. And these are the requirements that that kind of are outlined here, having the initial 1391 planning level documents, and then all the environmental and other real estate stuff put together. Otherwise, we can't. We can't meet the timelines to get the funds used in the time required. And then the other point I just wanted to make is, as you guys narrow down your request that you'll send over to the Navy, that these will be put into consideration with the other priorities competing of other projects we're putting together here on the base as well. So I just wanted to outline, not a guarantee that the project will get funded to be racked and stacked with the other projects that are being put forth. Over.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and Chairman Nyman, this is Steve again. I wanted to thank Steve Wright for all your work on this, because he's been a huge help getting this done, and certainly Commander Benson and the leadership and the direction you've provided. There's other people that are working on this that I want to make sure people know who's putting their time on this. David Janis working very hard on this. Scott O'Neill worked very hard on this, and certainly Don Zadiva. Don has been very helpful coordinating on this, and April, certainly April too. And I know going forward that April's going to be on staff. She'll be working on this, so April will put you in the loop on this to help get this done. So thank you guys all for helping work on this.
All right.
I think Steve.
Right.
Steve,
Yeah, is there? Does the board have a slide for the next project for the? I'm just curious. I'm looking at the board packet right now, and I
there
the
is
infiltration study.
Yes,
okay.
there is. It takes
right.
a minute to get up on the screen.
Oh, is that what the delay is?
It's up now.
Okay. Okay. So, also what I am working on right now to, and let me just, sorry for the delay, is putting together a scope of work for the percolation study investigation. So this is for fiscal year 2021. I believe that you were presented last meeting with kind of a three-phase approach to developing an actual pilot project percolation study. The first phase of that scope of work is kind of the reconnaissance investigation. Right now, I have reviewed some of the existing documents. I've looked at the treatment study that was prepared in 2016 or 2015, I'm sorry, I can't remember, by Provost for the city, looking at some initial soils information and putting together the work that would need to be done for developing that phase one reconnaissance level. My plan right now is to have that scope of work and budget prepared by the February 19th and present that to the TAC for their review. And then after that, address the TAC comments and then provide that scope of work and budget to the board for your March meeting. So right now, the initial review of the previous documents have been prepared, and I'm just developing that scope of work for distribution to the TAC. And that's kind of where we are right now on the percolation study. So,
have you looked at past work that's been done in this area? It seems to me that there is a good deal of work that's been done in the past, and not to say that you shouldn't do some of it again, but you should probably look into what has been done in the past.
I really appreciate your comment. I am a huge believer in not redoing work that's already existing. So, like I mentioned before, we also set and put together the recycled water plan. I've been looking at that where we looked at the injection wells. I've looked at the October 2015 draft for the city and any references to that. And certainly if there are documents that I don't know about and or that are existing that I can't get a hold of, certainly in the next week to 10 days prior to the 19th deadline, I'll look forward to including that. But certainly I agree with you. I want to make the most out of the pre-existing data.
Okay, any other comments on the Water Resource Manager's report? Okay, seeing none, we will move along to item 10, General Manager's report.
Yes, sir, Chairman, members of the board.
Oh, public comment.
Sir, I was just reminded you need to have public comment on item number.
Yep, my bad. So, all right, so we will bring it now to public comment for item 9, Water Resource Manager's report. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Judy Becker. My question is for Steve. Have you heard anything on the progress of our GSP and when it might be approved or disapproved?
Thank you, Judy. No, we have not. Technically, my recollection is they have until the end of this calendar year to respond. We have not had any comments or questions so far. The closest we've gotten is the comments we got from the state board, and that's it. So, but we will bring whatever we get something, we will bring it to you for sure.
Okay, any other callers? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will move on to Item number 10, General Manager's Report.
Yes, sir. Item 10A, report on the transient pool program. I'm going to turn it over to Keith Lemieux, GA Counsel.
Sure. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm pleased to present the report on the transient pool. As you'll recall at the last meeting, I explained that we had several meetings with the potentially qualified pumpers, the scope of the program, and because of those helpful comments we got back, we made some changes which you folks approved at the last meeting. I'm pleased to report that that effort has borne fruit, and that as a consequence, all of the qualified pumpers have joined the program. We got 100% acceptance. That 1,000 acre-feet of water in the program. As you know, as part of the changes that we approved at the last meeting, those pumpers are able to transfer the transient pool water between themselves and also to certain other agricultural interests, such as Mojave pistachios, for example. We have created a transfer form that was referenced in the policy that you approved last meeting, and that's available currently on the agency website for anybody who's contemplating such things. And just as a final note on this, one of the requirements, obviously, to join the transient pool is to waive litigation against the GA, and we're happy to see that everybody has agreed to do that. So we see this on the legal team as an important step forward to get past the litigation era and moving towards a situation where we've got full cooperation, everybody's rowing in the same direction. If you had told me that we would have gotten most of the pumpers, most of the ag users to agree with the GSA, GSP, I mean, if you had told me that 2 years ago, I'd say you're crazy. So this is a really important step, and I'm really grateful for all of the folks in that pool and their the agents who, such as Derek Hoffman, who worked with us on this. It was very helpful. So it's a good report for a change. That concludes the report. Unless you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Okay, on to item number 10B. When I took a look at this report yesterday, it appears there's some flaws in the report, so I'll just report on the items of significance that are relevant. Through January, and this would be fees that were received primarily from December, the board received about $464,000 in revenue and paid out about $424,000 in expenditures, leaving the balance in the bank at $104K. We currently have $462,000 in unpaid bills. Part of that bills is awaiting reimbursement from certain grants. So I do foresee that here in the near future we'll get most of those caught up. I do believe we do need to revamp this financial report a little bit to reflect some more accuracies. Also, Mr. Retore, you had asked about actual pumping, extraction data, and fees received for the month. That will have to be done during the March meeting. Most of these fees and reporting items are collected on the 10th of every month. Being that this is the 10th, we didn't have the data to provide you, so that will be in next month's report. And then 10C, report on the Groundwater Authority's water marketer. I do have Jeff Simonetti on the phone to comment on that. Jeff, you can proceed.
Actually, members of the Board of Directors, good afternoon. It is Michael McKinney with Capital Core Group. I'll step in for Jeff on this particular one. The report that you have in front of you is the Infrastructure Strategic Funding Plan, which replaces the document that we provided to you in October of 2019. The revised document includes clarifications of program funding opportunities, as well as updated materials and meetings that have occurred since then, and also includes the request for funding of the wastewater treatment plant and water recycling plant to provide you the most up-to-date information. To let you know how we developed this particular plan, we took a survey and discussion with all federal and state agencies that have jurisdiction over water programs and met with them dealing with water supplies, water storage, floodwater mitigation, Safe Drinking Water Act requirements, et cetera, to determine what programs that were eligible. In addition, we did a survey and direct advocacy with all legislative items that were pending. We met extensively with the governor of the state of California to discuss water issues, and then also we looked for direct legislative opportunities either through appropriations or authorizations that might be able to occur during the fiscal years that were needed for the construction of both the interconnection project as well as the water recycling project. Lastly, we took a look at grant opportunities that were available to the district and would determine eligibility. I will let you know that the main focus in this report is the first 11 pages. I apologize for the size of the book. The remaining portions of the report are the backup data of the individual programs that we determined for eligibility. Essentially, what we have found is that there are a number of federal and state loan programs that would either provide complete or partial funding for the infrastructure that is needed. There are direct legislative opportunities in terms of authorization for total funding of the water recycling or partial funding of the interconnection. In addition, there are grant opportunities. Most of them are small. There are some large grants that are available that we are exploring at the state level and continue to work on those particular issues. One thing that I will bring up for you is within the loan programs that we found eligible, the two most favorable seem to be under the state revolving fund. The water recycling plant is eligible under the drinking water state revolving fund, and the interconnection project is eligible under both the clean water and the drinking water state revolving fund. Lastly, WIFIA, which is a large federal loan done by the Environmental Protection Agency, could fund portions of the of either project, and we've determined eligibility at this particular point in time. In terms of direct budget requests or authorizations, of course, we have a pending request with the United States Department of Navy. However, we also have some additional discussions that are going on with EPA, the Bureau of Reclamation, and the U.S. Department of Commerce on various programs that they have that might fund the water recycling plant and to a lesser extent may fund the interconnection project at this point. State agency opportunities, just to run through them quickly, we believe that the $60 million that was supposed to be in the budget from last year would be again stripped out this year. That is not the case. I am happy to report the governor has reprogrammed that back into the budget, and we are currently exploring with him what he is planning on doing. That is directly related to signal compliance, and our efforts have been to position the Groundwater Authority as being first in line for those funds at this point. We have a number of agencies that are still in review, and we're still discussing with them various programs, and we have a current pot of money that we are working with both the city of Ridgecrest as well as Stetson, and that is what is in your report as the Temperance Flat Dam Funds reprogramming. That has a October application deadline with a lot of information that needs to be put together prior to January 1 of 2022. We're exploring if that is a potential opportunity for either the city or the groundwater authority to go after at this time. From there, I think I'll stop and just answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mike. And so any questions from the board at this time?
Not a question, but a comment. I read it, and it looked very thorough and very complete, and I want to express my appreciation for all the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments from the board?
Well, this is Tom Bukowskis with Bureau of Land Management. My question is, are any of those grants that you've found available to pay for the planning of the interconnect?
There are some that are available for the planning of the interconnect. They are very small grants, most of them running into the $1 to $3 million range, and mostly running under the Bureau's Water Smart program. In addition, there are some planning grants that are available through USDA. However, eligibility still needs to be determined on those before we move forward.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Okay, next item, the Severely Disadvantaged Communities program update. We do know that the contractor has been spending a significant time out in the Argust-Trona area doing leak audits. He's been out there the entire month. Also, they have been running their public program for the installation of high-efficiency water devices in the SDAC areas. They've had some issues with public participation. I do know that they are still working on their community outreach to continue to promote that program. Next item, 10E, delinquent accounts. I have no report on that at this time. And well registration update is still as it was last month, with 134 de minimis well registrations to date. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Strand. We'll open up to public comment on item number 10, General Manager's Report. Okay, seeing, you got a call. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Hi, this is Kimberly Reside again on behalf of Mojave. My question is about the private funding options. Will there be an updated report on those options? And the second part of my question is, are those options being explored for the interconnection projects?
Are you referring to public bonds to fund those projects?
That's right.
I do believe that staff is going to begin to look at public funding options for the purchase of water, which would also include the future interconnect. Specifically for the interconnect now, no, but I do believe we will be looking at how can we fund any projects using the replenishment fee in the future.
Okay, and I did want to just refer to one line in the Capital Core report. It said that a survey of private funding opportunities was also researched. I didn't see that in the report, the survey of private fundings. Could you point me to where in the report that is, or if that's something that will be supplemented later?
Michael, can you try answering that question?
Mike McKinney, are you still with us?
Yeah, I can answer. I'll try and answer that question. Regardless of whether or not it's in the report, I do believe staff is going to seek assistance through professional financing groups to get that question answered. I know the Capital Corps has been pursuing the grant aspect of it. I don't know if they reach out as far as the public finance. I believe that would be staff seeking that separately.
I remember in his presentation, I think he briefly talked about funding, through loan, different loan aspects that may be available. So we can look into that a little further and address that question. So,
yeah, staff is intending to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple questions on the general manager's report.
Let me finish up with public comment first, Dan.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
No, we may still have some more calls. Do we have any other callers? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. And Director Rator, you have a comment or statement?
Actually, I have two. Thank you. I had requested last meeting that we have a report out on the water that is pumped out of the aquifer during the manager's report, and I didn't hear anything regarding that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rator. I do believe I mentioned it during that item that we did not include that information in the report because it's normally collected on the 10th of every month. And since today's the 10th, we don't have the data, so that will be reflected in the March report.
Oh, okay, fine, good. And secondly, I'd ask for a report on the revenue that has come in from the revised extraction fee, starting with whenever the revised extraction fee became current.
Correct. Once again, that fee is not due until the 10th of every month, and so that will be included in next month's report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ron, this is Michael McKinney. I have rejoined. If there was a question for me, I apologize. I had stepped off.
Yeah, I think I answered it. It was just a question regarding, was there a mention in your report regarding a scan of private financing to finance the interconnect? And my answer was I didn't think that you guys were doing that component of private finance and that the GA was going to have to pursue that through other financial groups.
I will add two things to that, Ron. We did actually make a request to two organizations to look at the interconnection agreement. Those two are Amoresco, a large energy services and water services corporation out of Massachusetts, and Bostonia, a private infrastructure financing company also out of Massachusetts. Both of them declined to really dive into financing the interconnection infrastructure. There is discussion with those two organizations and at least a preliminary discussion regarding looking at the water recycling facility.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to closing comments. We'll start with Director Peters.
No comments for me, Chairman. Thank you.
Director Rator.
Yes, the Water District would like to have an agenda item regarding a waiver to the man camp replenishment fee. I think it's already been discussed by the staff, and I don't know if it's been agreed to put it on the next month's calendar or not, but we are requesting that it be on the agenda for next month.
Keith, I know you had a conversation with Jim Worth regarding this. Do you want to add anything to that request?
Well, I did talk to Jim Worth about that, and there was some discussion because that was a transient use. there was some discussion about whether it would be appropriate, rather than generating a policy for an exception to the replenishment fee, whether it would be appropriate to have the district acquire the water through the transient pool. And I guess, Director Rotora, I guess my question is the item that you're requesting, is it for staff to generate a policy to allow exceptions for the replenishment fee, or is it something having to do with the transient pool? I think when I left it with Jim, he said he'd get back to me, and I haven't heard back yet.
Yeah, I think Jim will get back to you. I had not heard anything with regard to the transient pool. What we had discussed was, basically the brackish water project got a waiver because it's not really production water. That's a long-term production water capability or use. It really is a short-term, temporary water use. So we're just requesting a waiver to the replenishment fee, and similar to the brackish water waiver. I'm sure Jim will get back to you.
Yeah, Chairman Heyman, this is Jim Worth. May I just make a quick comment?
Yes, Jim, go ahead.
Yes, I agree with what Keith said in our discussions. The only other thing that I would point out is that during that discussion, it was getting very close to having to post the agenda, and Keith and I both agreed that there wasn't sufficient time to do anything and provide a good staff report for the February 10th board meeting, and that we were going to start to discuss this after the February board meeting. And that is still the water district's and my intent as well. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, possibly have it, on the March meeting?
That would be the water district's hope.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Worth?
Thank you.
That is all.
Director Vallejo, closing comments.
No comments. Thank you.
I'm going to jump ahead of and give my closing comments. I just wanted to welcome Director Ittmeyer to the board, and with that, I would like to ask Director Ittmeyer if he has any closing comments, and if he would like to give just a brief introduction at that time, he can do that if he'd like.
Thank you. Thank you. I just appreciate how helpful everyone in staff has been in helping prepare for helping provide materials and make this meeting run as smoothly as it has. I know Bob Page has been in my role for a long time, and I just want to thank him also for all his assistance with the transition, and look forward to working with everyone on this challenge.
Very good, and we look forward to working with you too. So with that, our next meeting will be March 10th, 2021, and we are going to close the open session, and we are going to move back into closed session. Okay, we have just completed our closed session and are coming back to open session, and we will report out on closed session with Keith Lemieux. Keith, are you back on open session yet?
Hi. Okay. I tried calling in. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, and I just closed us out of closed session, and we are now opened back into open session. They're going to report out of closed session with your report.
Sure. The board met in closed session to discuss the 4 litigation items identified in the agenda, including undisclosed litigation. After receiving a report from general and special counsel, there was no reportable action that took place. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the report.
Thank you, sir. And with that, this meeting is now adjourned.
All right.